Job's frustration has been building since the very beginning of the book, ever since the world stopped making sense for him. But after those series of speeches of the friends, that frustration really culminates in chapter 31. Chapter 31 is really when Job has had all he can stand and can't stand anymore, and he's deciding to sort of lay his case out for demonstrating his blamelessness and why he doesn't need to suffer what God has brought upon him. And so it's unusual for us to do this, but I do want to look at all of chapter 31 because it really is a very passionate defense that Job brings. Job 31. If I have made a covenant with my eyes, how then can I look upon a virgin? What would my portion from God above and my heritage from the Almighty on high? Does not calamity befall the unrighteous and disaster the workers of iniquity? Does he not see my ways and number all my steps? So he's already making the case that, bad things happen to bad people, and I'm not. Isn't God paying attention to see that I'm innocent? Doesn't God understand that I'm being punished unfairly here? And here's where he really lays it out. If I have walked with falsehood and my foot has hurried to deceit, let me be weighed in a just balance and let God know my integrity. In other words, God's not judging me fairly. If my step has turned aside from the way and my heart has followed my eyes, if any spot has clung to my hands, then let me sow and another eat, and let what grows for me be rooted out. If my heart has been enticed by a woman, and I've lain in wait of my neighbor's door, then let my wife grind for another, and let men kneel over her. For that would be a heinous crime. That would be a criminal offense. That would be a fire consuming down to Abaddon or destruction. And it would burn to the root all my harvest. If I've rejected the cause of my male and female slaves when they brought a complaint against me, what then shall I do when God rises up? When he makes inquiry, what shall I answer him? Did not he who made me in the womb make them? And did not the one fashion us in the womb? If I have withheld anything that the poor desired, or have caused the eyes of the widow to fail, or have eaten my morsel alone, and the orphan is not eaten from it. For from my youth I reared the orphan like a father, and from my mother's womb I guided the widow. If I have seen anyone perish for lack of clothing, or a poor person without covering, whose loins have not blessed me, and who was not warmed by the fleece of my sheep. If I have raised my hand against the orphan because I saw I had supporters at the gate, then let my shoulder blade fall from my shoulder, let my arm be broken from its socket, for I was in terror of calamity from God, and I could not have faced his majesty. If I had made gold my trust, or called fine gold my confidence, if I rejoiced because my wealth was great, or because my hand had acquired so much, if I have looked at the sun when it shone, or the moon moving in splendor, and my heart has been secretly enticed, and my mouth has kissed my hand, then this also would be iniquity, be punished by the judges, for I should have been false to God above. If I've rejoiced at the ruin of those who hated me, or exulted when evil overtook me, if I've not I have not let my mouth sin by asking for the lives with a curse. If those of my tent ever said, oh, that we might be sated with his flesh, the stranger has not lodged in the street. I have opened my doors to the traveler. If I have concealed my transgressions as others do by hiding my iniquity in my bosom, because I stood in great fear of the multitude, and the contempt of families terrified me, so that I kept silence and did not go out of doors. Oh, that I had one to hear me. And here's where he's really building. Now you see how he's gone here, listing, I've taken care of the poor, I've taken care of the widow, I've taken care of my slaves, I've taken care of everything. I've done everything I was supposed to do. And if I've not, let punishment befall me. Absolutely. I totally deserve it. But I have it. And then he goes on with this big finale here. Oh, that I had one to hear me. Here is my signature. Let the Almighty answer me. So he's now swearing out an affidavit against God. He's taking God into court now all of a sudden. Surely I would carry it on my shoulder. I would bind it on me like a crown. I would give him an account of all of my steps. Like a prince, I would approach him. If my land has cried out against me and its furrows have wept together, if I've eaten its yield without payment and caused the death of its owners, let thorns grow instead of wheat and foul weeds instead of barley. The words of Job are ended. He basically finishes with, let God get down here. Let my adversary, that's what he says, God is his adversary. That's actually a play on his own name. God is now his adversary here. Let God bring that. And you know what? If God can give me an indictment and show me how I have deserved this kind of punishment, then I will put it on my head. I'll wear it like a crown. I'll walk around and say, yes, I deserve this. This is absolutely just. I deserve this. But he can't do it. I can walk up to him like a prince. I can prove to him that I'm totally innocent. This is his frustration, that he knows there's no direct cause. We do too. We saw at the very beginning, right? We know he's blameless and upright. We know he's right here, and that there is no cause for this level of suffering. But he has just now demanded that God appear. He's actually sworn out a legal document to get God to appear and make a defense of himself. This would be a good time for God to appear, except God doesn't appear. Elihu appears on the scene rather than Yahweh. Who is Elihu? I have absolutely no idea. He is not numbered among the three friends at the very beginning. His speeches do seem to be a different kind of poetry than the other friends' speeches. He doesn't really contribute a whole lot to it. I've often suggested he contributes a little comic relief. You can see at the very beginning, Elihu, son of Barachel the Buzite, answered, I'm young in years, and you are aged, therefore I was timid and afraid to declare my opinion to you. I said, let days speak, and many years teach wisdom. But truly it's the spirit in a mortal and the breath of the Almighty that makes for understanding. So basically, Elihu started with, I've been here and I haven't said anything because I thought old people were smart, but now that I see you aren't, I think I'm going to have to, weigh in here a little bit. Um, Most scholars assume the Elihu speeches come later in the composition of the book of Job. They were added over time. They may have been. Like I said, the poetry does seem a little bit different. Elihu doesn't contribute a whole lot to the conversation. There's not a whole lot new here. He does say that God speaks through dreams and pain, and that Job should listen, and that God can't do wrong, so Job must be wrong in his theology. And God does restore the righteous and the wicked, but you have to be patient. And God is all powerful, so stop asking those kind of questions. So in some ways, he echoes a little bit of the friends' points and does contribute a little bit, wait and see what happens. I think Elihu's function, though, is that he is there more than what he says. Because what those speeches of Elihu do, which I think is very effective from a literary perspective, is they don't let Job summon God. And I think that's an effective thing. You don't want Job to say, God, get your butt down here, and then God just show up. So Job demands God get your butt down here, and then there's this very long 5-chapter, 6-chapter pause before God does ultimately show up. But you can bet that God is not going to let Job's legal document rest. He's going to show up in court, and boy, when he does, it's fairly impressive.